If you're watching this video, you're looking to learn a little bit more about the dual top heater. Today, we'll discuss 3 conditions you might experience and how to address them. The points covered in this video apply to the dual top Evo 6 and ST6 models. We really hope this video helps you troubleshoot issues in the future. The first issue has to do with an F04 flash code related to the fuel pump electrical circuit. After that, we'll discuss water management in general, focusing on how to differentiate between a water leak and normal operation. Staying on the topic of water leaks, we'll show you how to diagnose and repair a water leak at the boiler tank itself. Lastly, we'll talk about a lack of communication condition between the control panel and the heater. Okay, let's get to it. A flash code of F04 indicates an issue in the fuel pump or its electrical circuit. It's important to note that if you have the digital control panel, you will see message 6 or message 7 on the screen. We'll be referring to flash code 4 in this video, but the information we're covering would apply to message 6 or 7 as well. If an inspection of the fuel pump and the external wiring doesn't reveal a fault, the next place you'll need to look is inside the dual top's case. The checks you'll make are at the front of the heater, but the actual components are at the rear. Let's have a look at the 3 switches that are inside the dual top case and a part of the fuel pump circuit. There is the combustion chamber overheat switch mounted on the rear of the heat exchanger. You'll also find a water overheat switch mounted on the boiler tank itself. This is a surface mounted switch and does not pose leak risk. Finally, you'll find an air overheat switch mounted on the rear end cap. The fuel pump signal passes through the 3 switches on the back of the dual top. Those 3 switches we discussed are located here on the wiring diagram, denoted S1, S2, and S3. Now let's have a look at the switches and where they are in the circuit to understand how the circuit functions. If any one of these switches opens due to an overheat condition, the circuit will open, the ECU will see an open fuel pump circuit, and the fault code will be set. First, the on signal is sent from the ECU and passes first through the large 11-way connector on the outside of the dual top, then through the overheat sensor mounted on the burner. After that, the signal passes through the 9-way Y10 connector inside of the case at the lower left corner and through the water overheat switch. Now the signal passes back through that Y10 connector and then through the air temperature overheat switch. Finally, the signal passes through the large connector outside of the dual top once again before signaling the fuel pump to cycle and returning to the ECU. Feel free to pause the video here if you want to look at the circuit in more detail. You can easily check the continuity of all 3 of these switches at the Y11 connector right at the heater itself using your digital volt ohm meter or DVOM. These are switches we're dealing with, not sensors, so we're simply looking for continuity between pins 7 and 8. To check the switches individually, you'll need to take the front cover off the heater. To check the combustion overheat switch, you can use a DVOM to check for continuity at the Y9 connector. This is the white 2-pin connector that has 2 gold braided wires on one side of the connector. You'll check those 2 wires. The air and water overheat switches can be checked through the Y10 connector. Simply check continuity between pins 1 and 7 for the water overheat switch and pins 2 and 8 for the air overheat switch. Don't forget, you've been doing this testing on the switch side of the harness, the male connector housing. On the female connector housing, there is a short jumper wire between pins 7 and 2 of the internal harness. This needs to be checked as well. If the switch harness assembly needs to be replaced, the boiler tank will have to come out of the case. Now, let's talk about the water side of things. If you find water on the ground under the dual top, the first thing you need to determine is, do you have a water leak or is it simply normal operation? There is a drain tube, seen here, that directs water out of the heater case under normal conditions. That drain tube exits the heater case at the bottom of the unit. Water will come out of this tube under the following normal conditions. As water is heated, it expands. This can cause water to leave the boiler via the overpressure valve, part of the combination valve. This will amount to no more than a few drips every time the water is heated. We can see the overpressure valve in the upper left corner of the heater. The heating air blower motor and the drain tube have been removed for clarity. The overpressure valve expels water into the drain tube that then drips onto the ground. During normal operation, a little water will accumulate under the heater as the water expands every time it's heated. With the drain tube removed, we also notice the drain valve at the bottom of the heater in the center. If the heater enters drain mode, the water will drain from the boiler through the drain hose and the entire contents of the boiler will run onto the ground. These conditions are part of normal operation. For more information on drain mode or the overpressure valve, refer to the operation and service manuals available at www.techwebasto.com or in the literature that accompanied the heater. If there is a leak at the boiler tank, you will find water escaping the case along the seams between the boiler housing and the two end caps. The first place to look is right here, where the water inlet pipe goes into the boiler tank. There is a rubber O-ring inside, and that can fail over time. After carefully removing the black collar, you will find the O-ring installed. A replacement O-ring can be sourced locally. If you need to replace the black collar, order a pair of brass barbed connectors available from the service parts list. Refer to that service parts list for the part number. Carefully remove the black collar from the connector and install it in the boiler tank, along with the O-ring. After replacing the parts, simply reassemble the heater and check to make sure that the leak has been fixed. Occasionally, one of our technicians will receive a call concerning a heater that is non-responsive. In these cases, you will only see the green status indicator light flashing at a constant rate. This constant green flashing indicates a lack of communication between the heating unit control module and the control panel. This is caused by an open circuit between the control panel and the heater control module. The most common fault is the 15 amp F1 fuse being blown. This is the fuse with the solid red wire on both sides. If the fuse is blown, it's important to determine and correct the cause of the blown fuse. If the fuse isn't blown, check for an open in that circuit. We hope this information helped you troubleshoot the more common issues we have seen with the dual-top Evo 6 and ST6 heaters. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list of every potential issue that could be possible. If you still need technical assistance after viewing this video, please call our technical support helpline at 1-800-860-7866, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We really hope this video helped you.